G'day, and welcome to the AOS Coach sneak peek into the 2022 Battletome for the Disciples of Tzeentch. Now in this video, I am going to focus on the allegiance abilities like the command traits, the sub-faction type stuff, the allegiance rules themselves, spells, etc, etc. And to avoid making this video too long, there is a separate video that will focus on the key war scroll changes and points and things like that. Now, Games Workshop did send me this book in advance before it hits the shelves at no cost, but they will have no involvement in the creation of this video. You'll also get a whole bunch of narrative gems, art, path to glory, a detailed map of Shaun, as well as a unique code, so you can unlock these rules in the AOS app. Tzeentch has kept a whole bunch of rules from the old book, as well as gained some new ones. There is some lost ones though as well, and we'll highlight those as we go through. You have kept your 6 sub-factions like Host Duplicitous, the Guild of Summoners, and the Eternal Conflagration, and I will share the rules for them later in this video. I did mention you have lost some rules, and I will share with you that the Agendas of Anarchy are no longer in the Battletome, so there's no longer those rules that you need to try to strive for, and if you achieve them, you get a bonus. I know most people really only cared about the +1 to cast agenda, but really I'm not too sad about it going away because it's just another thing you had to do on top of your battle tactics, on top of killing your opponent, on top of scoring objectives. It's just one less bookkeeping you need to do. But what you did get is Arcane Armies. It's a new allegiance ability. In the first battle round, after the players have received their starting command points, but before the start of the first turn, you pick one friendly Disciples of Tzeentch wizard on the battlefield, and that wizard can automatically cast either the Burning Sigil, the Tome of Eyes, or the Demonic Simulacrum endless spell. So there's no casting roll that needs to be required. It can't be unbound, and it can't be dispelled in the first battle round. And you get to set it up normally as it's described on the spell. And we'll go through the endless spells and see if there are any changes. Spoiler alert, the Tome of Eyes and the Demonic Simulacrum haven't changed based on what I can see. The Locus of Change rule remains unchanged, and if you're not familiar with the rules, you get to subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that are made with melee weapons that target a friendly Disciples of Tzeentch demon unit if it's wholly within 12 inches of a Disciples of Tzeentch demon hero. So combine your pink horrors with a, I don't know, Fluxmaster or some type of demonic hero, keep it within 12 inches, wholly within 12 inches of that hero, and they'll be -1 to hit in melee. It's a great little rule, and it will combine well with a whole bunch of actual save boosts. So one of the things I'll share from the other video is that a whole bunch of your units have gotten a +1 save characteristic bump. So good news over there. Your cheaty dice, aka your destiny dice, remain a core element of the allegiance ability. I know some people have been a little bit worried that it'll disappear, and you still get to roll those 9 dice at the end of deployment, and those dice can be used to replace a set of specific dice rolls like run, casting, hit, wound, save, battle shock. From what I can see, there were no real changes other than some minor language tweaks, but ultimately the core rules and how they work are fundamentally the same from what I noticed in the old book. Dice rolls replaced with destiny dice still cannot be re-rolled, and they also count as being unmodified. Though your save rolls are still affected by rend, your battle shock is still affected by slain models against the test. You know these cheaty dice are some of the best allegiances in AOS because you get to guarantee outcomes. It allows you to land that important charge, it allows you to cast that critical spell, and it allows you to pass that battle shock test where you might have given away control to your opponent if you failed it. So any guarantees are always good, especially from a competitive point of view, and that's why the cheaty dice are so good. And there's some good ways to manipulate and as well as gain extra dice as you go through the game. So we'll discuss that as we go along. But wait, that's not the only allegiance abilities you've got. You have transformed to spawn, which is probably more of a clarification than it is actually an allegiance ability. If a model is transformed into a spawn, you do get to add 1 Tzeentch Chaos Spawn unit to your army, and you set it up within 1 inch of the unit that is being transformed. And You know, there's a lot of spells and some abilities and things like that that allow you to turn one of your enemy models into a chaos spawn. Great way to tie them up or lock them into combat, or deny and unleash hell into maybe a charging unit that a chaos spawn's already there. But you'll find plenty of ways. A good example is like the Burning Sigil. That endless spell can turn models into chaos spawn. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. You've still got your Legions of Chaos Coalition. 2 in every 4 of your units can be selected from the Slaves to Darkness, as long as they have the Mark of Chaos keywords. And when you choose them, they've got to take the Tzeentch Mark of Chaos keyword. 1 in every 4 can also come from Beasts of Chaos, as long as they don't already have the Tzeentch keyword. If they've already got the Tzeentch keyword, you can't do it. If they don't, when you bring them in, they will gain the Tzeentch keyword. A Disciples of Tzeentch army cannot have coalition units that have Khorne or the Nurgle keyword. If you're unfamiliar with coalition units, first off, they're not allies. Coalition and allies are 2 different things. The benefit of taking a coalition unit, firstly, is that you can exceed your points restriction. So normally when you're in a traditional 2,000 point match play battle, you can only take up to 400 points of allies into your army. This allows you to exceed that because coalition, again, are not allies. But the other benefit as well is that with allies, you normally can't put an enhancement like an artifact on them. When they're a coalition unit, you can absolutely put artifacts onto your coalition forces. So a great ways to start building in some customization when it comes to your list building and maybe pulling together some of those Tzeentch keywords. Finally, you've still got your summoning demons of Tzeentch using fate points. And if you're unfamiliar with how fate points work, they are generated each time a spell is successfully cast and not unbound. So if you or your opponent casts a spell successfully and it's not unbound, you will generate 1 fate point. Now, the summoning range has gotten slightly smaller. Before, I believe it was you had to be wholly within 12 inches of the summoner. This time now, when you summon, it must be wholly within 9 inches of a Disciples of Tzeentch hero. The fate point cost hasn't changed, and neither has the summonable options. So you haven't lost anything there. You still have 11 options to choose from in game that will match really like what you need in the battle. Minimum units of like Screamers and Brimstone or Blue Horrors will still cost you 10 fate points. If you need to bring yourself in a minor hero like the Changecaster, that's 12 fate points. 10 Pink Horrors will be 20 fate points, and a Lord of Change will be 30 points. Now, if you do choose the Guild of Summoners subfaction, you will get a reduced fate points for the Lord of Change summon, and I'll explain a little bit more when we get to that. There are 10 command traits to choose from, 6 for your Arcanite heroes and 4 for your Demon heroes. When it comes to the Disciples of Tzeentch Arcanite heroes, you have those 6 options as I mentioned. Arch Sorcerer allows your general to know 2 extra spells from the Law of Fate. Nexus of Fate, at the start of your hero phase, if the general is on the battlefield, you get to roll a dice. And if you do so, you can replace one of the Destiny dice with that roll. The Cult Demagogue is for wizards only. If the casting roll for this general is a double, the casting attempt is successful and the spell cannot be unbound regardless of the roll. In addition, you're going to get yourself 2 fate points instead of 1. Arcane Sacrifice is also only for wizards, and at the start of the hero phase, you can cause 1 mortal wound to a friendly Tzeentch unit that's within 3 inches of the general, and if you do so until the end of that phase, you get to extend your spell range by 9 inches, so that's pretty awesome in my opinion. Soul Burn, if the unmodified hit roll for the attack made with the melee weapon is a 6, it's going to cause 1 mortal wound in addition to the damage it normally inflicts. And then finally, Illusionist will subtract 1 from hit rolls that target the general. My favorites would be the Arcane Sacrifice to increase the spell ranges from your general, or the Nexus of Fate that allows you to replace those Destiny dice for more useful ones like 6s and 1s. And you will see as we go through this video and the other video, there are other ways to manipulate and often some benefits in having high Destiny dice or having a pool of Destiny dice at the end of the game. When it comes to your demon heroes, there are those 5 options as I mentioned. Arch Sorcerer is very similar, but it gives you +2 spells to the Law of Change. Now, There are 2 spell laws. You'll notice that the Arcanites have the Law of Fate, and you'll notice the demons have the Lord of Change, and we'll talk about that later. You've got your Demon Spark, which is a once per battle ability where in the hero phase you can immediately get yourself 3 fate points. Nexus of Fate, we've already talked about, allows you to replace one of your destiny dice with a dice roll. And in Corporal Form, that gives your general a 5-up, ignoring the effects of spells and endless spells. Now, if I had to pick one of them from this list, it would either be Nexus of Fate, as I already really like that, especially if I can fish for more 5s and 6s, or the Demon Spark, because that would allow me to fast track some of the summoning of key units. It might get me a Lord of Change early, it might get me those 10 pink horrors quicker, or it might get me some screens like Brimstone or Blue Horrors onto the table sooner. But there's some of my favorites from the command traits. There are 12 artifacts to choose from, and your first artifact choice no longer is determined by your subfaction. And there are 6 for the Arcanites and 6 for the Demon Heroes. Now, I will not read all of these out to you. It's not story time with Coach, so maybe pause it or take a screenshot. But I will share some of my favorites. My favorites from the Arcanite side would probably be the Demon Heart, and that will help me get my hero out of a bit of a sticky situation, or maybe something like Secret Eater on a melee-focused hero like the Ogoroid Thermitage to help generate more destiny dice. On the other side with the demons, I think something like the Nine-Eyed Tome to get myself reroll casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for the bearer would be great. The Eternal Shroud to attempt to replenish destiny dice on a 5-up, or even the Beacon of Mutability that adds 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons for Disciples of Tzeentch demon units that are wholly within 9 inches of the bearer. A fair few of these are melee focused, and let's be honest, these are not the type of things that you want to be doing with your heroes. They're not traditionally the most tankiest heroes in the game. So, but look, there might be a couple of ideas you've got, especially probably in the Arcanite side where your heroes are probably a little bit more durable. Yes, I'm not talking about the Lord of Change, but your traditional 5 wound, 6 wound heroes. There are 11 spells to choose from in the faction. You have 6 from the Law of Fate, which is for your Arcanite wizards, and then you've got 5 for the Law of Change, which is for your demon heroes. Now, given that Tzeentch is a heavy spellcasting army, there's no surprise to you that there are a lot of great spell options, and some of them are very quite detailed in nature. Again, they're all on the screen here. I'll call out some of my favorites. When it comes to the Arcanites, I've got probably 4 of them that I really like. First is the Glimpse of the Future, which is a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, if you have less than 9 destiny dice, you can roll a dice and add it to your destiny dice pool. Your Bolt of Tzeentch is a casting value of 7, range of 18, and if successfully cast, you get to pick 1 enemy unit within range and it's visible, and that unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. You can't cast this spell more than once. The reason I say that is because the Bolt of Tzeentch is on both the Law of Fate as well as the Law of Change, so you can't double dip, even though that's on both of the spell laws. Arcane Suggestion is a spell that has a casting value of 18, and if you're successful, pick 1 enemy unit that's within range and visible, and it has 3 different debuff options that I absolutely love. If you choose It's Hopeless, the unit that you chose cannot receive or issue commands until your next hero phase. If you choose Drop the Weapons, you subtract 1 from hit and wound rolls until your next hero phase. Or if you choose Kneel, you get to subtract 1 from the save rolls until your next hero phase. Again, really good depending on if you're fighting like maybe a Mega Gargant where you want to subtract 1 from hit and wound rolls. Maybe if you're up against a Horde, you might want to, or maybe like a critical hero or a special hero that has like I don't know, like a hero phase command like Marathi, or maybe, you know, Smash and Bash or something from the Iron Jaws. You could stop that hero issuing that, or even Inspiring Presence. Or if you go up against, I don't know, like some elite units, I don't know, Varangard, Stormcast, something with a really high armor save, you could subtract 1 from save rolls. So a lot of great flexibility there. And the final one would be the Shield of Fate, casting value of 6, range 18. If successful, you pick 1 friendly Tzeentch unit that's wholly within the range, and until the start of your next hero phase, that unit gains 1 of these effects. So it will depend on how many destiny dice you have in your pool. If you have 1 to 3 destiny dice in your pool, that unit would have a 6-up ward. If you've got 4 to 6 destiny dice, you would have a 5-up ward. And if you are quite topped up around the 7 to 9 mark, then it would have a 5-up ward. In addition, it would ignore the effects of spells and endless spells on a 4-up. When it comes to the other side, the demon side, there are 3 additional spells that I would call out other than obviously the Bolt of Tzeentch. You have Fold Reality, which has the casting value of 7, range 18, and if successful, you pick 1 friendly Tzeentch demon unit that's wholly within range and roll a dice. On a roll of a 1, the unit's destroyed, so a little bit of risk there. But on a 2+, you get to return the amount of models equal to the dice roll. So I really do like that one a lot. You've got Tzeentch's Firestorm that has a casting value of 8 and a range of 12. And if successfully cast, you pick 1 enemy unit in range and visible to the caster. Roll 9 dice. Each 6 would get you D3 mortal wounds. So on average, you should get 1 to 2 of those D3 mortal wounds, obviously higher or lower, depending on if you spike. And then finally, Unchecked Mutation, which is a spell of casting value of 6, range 18. If successful, pick 1 enemy unit in range and visible. It suffers D3 mortal wounds, and if a model is slain, you get to roll a dice, and on a 3-up, they'll take another D3 mortal wounds. I mentioned earlier you do have a bunch of sub-factions, and you've still kept your 6 sub-factions, and you'll recognize them from the previous Battletome. Internal Conflagration improves the Ren characteristic of your friendly internal conflagrations, Warp Flame, the Billowing Warp Flame, and your Magical Flames. Those missile weapons will gain a Ren characteristic of +1. So things like your Flamers, your Exalted Flamers, I think your Chariot Flamers, or anything with the flames is going to get an extra point of Rend. With Host Duplicitous, enemy units within 3 inches of a friendly Host Duplicitous unit with 10 models or more can't retreat. In addition, once per battle, when the Host Duplicitous Horrors of Tzeentch unit from your starting army is destroyed, so not the summoned ones, just the ones that you choose from your starting army, you get to roll a dice. And on a 4-up, you get to add a Host Duplicitous Horrors unit of 5 models to your army. You set them up wholly within 12 inches of a Host Duplicitous hero, and obviously more than outside of 9 of your enemies. The Pyrophane Cult gets to add +1 to hit rolls for those Sorceress Bolts by the Pyrophane Cult Karak Acolytes. In addition, at the end of your shooting phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit that has suffered wounds caused by the Sorceress Bolt, and on a 5-up, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. The Guild of Summoners, if your army is a Guild of Summoners keyworded army, your fate points can be only used to summon Lords of Change, so you can't bring on any horrors or any minor heroes. But instead of your fate points costing you 30 points to summon every Lord of Change, when it comes to the Guild of Summoner Lords of Change, the first one is going to be 9 points. Then the second one and the ones after that will then cost you 18 fate points. So an easy way to get a lot of bin chickens on the table, but it will restrict you from what you can summon. You can only summon them. But in addition, those Lords of Change must be summoned wholly within 9 inches of a Guild of Summoners Arcanite hero, and more than 9 inches from enemy units. Host Arcanum once per turn in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th battle round. When a Host Arcanum wizard attempts to unbind a spell, you can choose for it to be automatically unbound, so you do not need to roll a 2d6. And as I mentioned, it is only for the 1st, 3rd, and 5th battle round. Finally, the Cult of Transcendent Form. You get to roll a dice each time a Cult of Transcendent Form Karak Acolyte model is slain in the combat phase, and on a roll of a 2 to a 5, before removing it from play, that model can fight, so a fight on death ability, and a roll of a 6, you get to remove the model from play and add 1 Zangor model to a friendly Zangor host unit that is within 9 inches of the slain model. The new model can only be set up within 3 inches of an enemy unit if it was already within 3 inches, so you can't use it to cheeky get into combat when the Zangors weren't in combat. But the other deciding decision with your sub-factions will be your battle line options, and does it unlock battle line options. Your Karak Acolytes and your Zangor are always going to be battle line regardless of your sub-faction in the Disciples of Tzeentch. Your horror units are going to be battle line so long as they're not blue horrors or brimstone horrors. If you're new to the faction, this could be a little bit confusing for you, but essentially it is one war scroll for 3 different versions, your pink, your blues, and your brims. If you pay the full amount for pink horrors, they are battle line. If you take the reduced cost for blues or brims, they aren't battle line. Your Burning Chariot of Tzeentch becomes battle line if your general is the Fate Skimmer Herald of Tzeentch on Burning Chariot. Screamers of Tzeentch become battle line in Hos Arcanum, and finally Flamers of Tzeentch become battle line in Internal Conflagration. There are some extra match play rules for you. You've got grand strategies, battle tactics, as well as a battalion. There are 4 grand strategies to choose from: Dominate, Arcane Nexus, Master of Destiny, Preponderance of Fate, and Realm of Magic. Dominate Arcane Nexus: when the battle ends, you complete the grand strategy if there is at least 1 friendly Disciples of Tzeentch Wizard, Horrors of Tzeentch, or Karak Acolyte units in each of the large quarters of the battlefield. You score Masters of Destiny at the end of the battle by adding the rolls of the Destiny dice that you haven't used. So if you've got a couple of dice, add the total number together, and if the total is 9 or more, you score it. So I mentioned earlier, there's good reason to be looking at trying to add Destiny dice back or manipulating those low numbers into high numbers. This is probably going to be my favorite and easiest grand strategy to choose from. Preponderance of Fate is scored when you have 27 unspent fate points at the end of the battle, and then Realm of Magic is scored when there are 2 or more endless spells on the battlefield that are under your control. When it comes to your battle tactics, there are 5 battle tactics to choose from. Call for Change is when you summon a Lord of Change on the battlefield. Mass Conjuration, you pick 1 friendly Disciples of Tzeentch wizard, and you complete the battle tactic if that wizard casts 3 or more spells in that turn, and none of them were unbound. Nightfall Dismantlement, you get to pick 1 enemy unit that has 9 or more models, or pick 1 enemy hero or monster with a wounds characteristic of 9 or more, and you complete it if you destroy it this turn. Reckless Abandon, you pick 1 friendly mortal Disciples of Tzeentch unit that is more than 18 inches from all enemy units, and you score this battle tactic if that unit completes a charge move this turn. Tides of Anarchy, you score when you gain control of an objective that was controlled by your opponent at the start of your hero phase, and if you've got 9 or more models within 6 inches of that objective when you control the objective. Finally, I mentioned that there was a War Scroll Battalion that you can use in match play, although you might find it a little bit restrictive because you have to take Kairos Fateweaver as well as 3 Lords of Change. They are all mandatory options. Now, the benefit of taking the Oracle's Battalion is that you're going to gain yourself 1 extra command point, and this battalion will cost you 1,635 points when you total Kairos and the 3 Lords of Change. So unfortunately, Lords of Change not battle line, so the only way you can make this work in a traditional 2,000 point battle would be to take 3 units of Acolytes to fulfill your battle line option, and then your unit of 4 bin chickens. So at first glance, it's looking good for the Disciples of Tzeentch. The core mechanics that have made this faction great remains true. You've still got your cheaty dice, you've still got your summoning, you've still got a deep spell lore, and you've still got interesting ways to customize your force. I personally really like the agendas disappearing because it felt like another set of bookkeeping when you consider you've already got battle tactics, you've got the missions, you've got so many different little intricate things to consider. I felt that the agendas was just another piece of bookkeeping. Although, you know, the free endless spell's nice. The fact that it's guaranteed and it's going to stay for the full battle round is going to be awesome. But I know some of you will be unhappy to lose that agenda that gave you +1 to cast. Let's be honest, you're pretty good at casting already. I don't think you needed the +1. The grand strategies and the battle tactics feel achievable, and I don't think they're too restrictive. And, you know, there's something for everyone, regardless if you're building a mortal or a demon or a mixed force. I really like that. And in the next video, I'm going to go into the individual war scrolls and highlight the changes when it comes to points. But Let me know in the comments section what you're currently thinking. Do you like what you see? Are there any rules that have stood out for you and you're considering to build around with your next list? Has there something that's really inspired you, or is there something that you're really disappointed? Am I underselling the loss of agendas? I'm curious to hear from you as well. I'm pretty happy they disappear, but I'm not the one like you who's playing with them on a very frequent basis. Let me know in the comment section. I'd be curious to hear from you. And don't forget, there's a second video that's going to highlight the other key changes. Thanks for hanging around until the end. I hope you enjoyed that video and you walked away with a few new ideas. If you did, I would love it if you press like on the video, as well as left me a comment to let me know what your thoughts are. The conversation will continue over on Discord, and the link is down below in the video description. I want to give a massive shout out as well to the AOS Coach Patreons and YouTube members who are going in, and the funds are supporting the channel and the growth that you're seeing here. So cheers, you're all bloody legends. And until next time, don't roll a 1 on a redeploy.